Hi everyone, it's Elizabeth from Elpis Astrology at elpisastrology.com. Thanks for joining me today. So this particular video I am making sort of, I guess, getting towards the latter part of January 2025, but it is for February 2025 astrology. So as usual, I'm going to do an introduction to generally give you the transits and what I think of them. Then I'm going to go on and do individual sun signs and or ascendants you pick, right? Now the big standout for me, actually there's two of them for February, is that Mars will now go direct towards the end, actually the 23rd of February. So that's all good news, you know, we can say things are going to start moving forward, certainly by, you know, the latter part of this month, February 2025. But we also have Mercury that will be going into its shadow period, literally the last day, the 28th of February. So both these things I think are important, and I'll go into the detail of what is around both those transits or degree points so you can relate it to your own chart, right? So we have on the 3rd of February, we have this nice conjunction of Neptune, which is the ruler of Pisces, conjuncting the transiting north nodes in Pisces. Now, this can just, as a general theme, make things dreamy, have you feeling very inspired, giving inspiration to people. But if we take it out to the general world, we could say a lot of us are going to feel very inspired at this time. In particular, if you were in the arts, and I'm thinking more like dance, music, either playing music, writing music, poetry, but the arts generally speaking, I would say that this 3rd of February could bring some wonderful ideas in for you. But for others, it might just be a time to dream about your future, right? Or how can I inspire myself and be motivated in my future ahead of me, right? Now, the next day, on the 4th of February, we have Jupiter going direct at 11 Gemini. And so this is good news. I mean, Jupiter, generally speaking, doesn't really bring anything bad for you unless you're really working. And if you're working towards bad stuff, this will, you know, expand it for you. But generally speaking, this is a very positive transit as well. It may, generally speaking, bring in some good news for us, or maybe some news that's been held back for some reason, right? Because Gemini is all about communications, news, that sort of thing. So that 4th of February could actually have some good news coming our way, or something revealed through probably the news media of some sort. Now on the 12th of Feb, we have our first lunation of the month, and it's going to be a full moon in Leo at 24 Leo and 5 minutes at 5:53 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We will have the sun, that will be in Aquarius, right? That's opposite to Leo, will be conjuncting Mercury. But if we look at the sun, the moon, and Mercury, they're all squaring Uranus. We're going to have Mars, which is still retrograde, trining Saturn. I think that is a good thing. And then Venus will be widely sextiling Pluto, Mars widely squaring Chiron. So when we look at this big lineup of the sun, the moon, and Mercury square Uranus, it immediately says to me, there's going to be some bad news delivered, or news that's not going to sit. And this may be very revolutionary type energy too with that Uranus, right? But because it's a full moon, it's also saying there's going to be some unwelcome announcements about endings to things. And I say with the Leo full moon, this is like a proclamation, you know, Leo the lion, strutting on that stage, look at me. So there's going to be that kind of, I would say, arrogance probably around that full moon, and maybe literally someone like Leo the lion, you know, making these unwelcome announcements. But that whole full moon is all around communications, announcements, news, with the Sun conjuncting Mercury at this time. I like the Mars retrograde trining Saturn. What this does is they're both opposing energies on their own, if you think about it. But what this is saying is this is going to be a good day to potentially, put your shoulder into doing some work of some sort, or planning, especially since it's still retrograde Mars. This would be a really good day to plan, maybe to end something, right? Because it's a full moon. The Venus sextiling Pluto says to me, there may be some opportunities to make some money. So maybe that Mars retrograde trine Saturn has you thinking and planning out work of some sort, right? Saturn is work. And then that whole Venus sextiling Pluto says, hey, there might be some opportunities to make money here if I plan carefully. There may be some current concerns generally about health of some sort. Just some information coming up because we still have that Mars retrograde, but it's squaring Chiron, speaking about health, right? When we look at further on into February, at the 23rd of February, at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we have that Mars going direct, and it will go direct at 17 degrees of Cancer. So certainly, if you've got something around 17 degrees of Cancer, this is a signal on the 23rd of February that you're going to see a clear way forward to take some action or movement of some sort, right? A lot of people are going to be cheering that day. Now, technically, you're supposed to really wait till Mars, although it's going direct that day, to actually get out of its shadow period. But I've really felt strongly about this, that this day is going to mark something for some people with regards, okay, I'm finally released. I can move forward with my plans, whatever those plans are. Now, this is Cancer, right? So Cancer, we're talking about motherhood. We're talking about our home, our homeland, our families. So yeah, if you've got something around this point, it might be a day that you give birth. That could be very much it. Or your family is more important to you for some reason at this time. Maybe making movement literally towards them. Now, as Mars goes direct, it will widely oppose a moon that is going to be in Capricorn. So what this does, and I really liked it, with the moon being in conservative Capricorn, it kind of tempers any immediate rash movement forward at this Mars going direct time period on the 23rd of February. So I like that. Mercury in Pisces will be trining Mars. So this says probably announcements, good news announcements of, hey, we're going forward with this now. I've signed off the contract, here it is. Or we've got approval for the money for that proposal. We're still going to have the influence of Neptune conjunct in the north nodes. So this also gives great inspiration, right? So I think that adds more, the Neptune conjunct north nodes, more emphasis on the Mars going direct and actually, tangibly seeing something that reflects that. Mercury will widely conjunct Saturn. And I think that's good too. It's like being conservative in your thinking. The most negative part of Mercury conjunct Saturn would be negative thinking. So I would suggest that you take yourself out of that negative thinking, go for a walk or something like that. Distract yourself with some pleasant music, and that should solve that problem, hopefully. The other thing that I like too is that Mars trining Saturn, right? So Mars direct trining Saturn. Well, this gives you the ability to do precision work. So certainly if that also is something that you've been held back from doing in a way that you wanted to do it, any kind of precision work, right the way from literally cutting gemstones to, precision work with regards to putting a piece of equipment together or putting together the elements of a proposal. This particular, especially with the Mars going direct that time, really gives you a lot of great energy to put things in the precise way they're supposed to be. So our final lunation of the month is going to be a new moon in Pisces. So happy new year to all my Pisces viewers and clients. It's going to be on the 27th of February at 9 Pisces 40 minutes at 4:45 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now Mercury will widely conjunct the north nodes and not too far off Saturn as well. We're going to have Mars going direct, widely trining Saturn, and we already spoke about what that means a little bit earlier in this video. And then we have Mercury sextiling Uranus. I mean, this particular new moon has a pretty big lineup of planets in Pisces. I'm just looking at my chart here. But the thing, besides the sun and the moon being together at a new moon, there's a number of degrees between any of the planets or positions that are in Pisces. So it says to me that on the wider world level, I think there's going to be some reason to do a lot of new starts with regards to compassionate projects. I almost see this as like a compassionate committee with this lineup in Pisces, putting together some help for people who need it. And I mean, on a more personal level, this could be, I mean, Pisces can represent hidden places like hospitals. There may be some revisions with regards to hospital type things, compassion types things, right? Now, the next day, so that's the last day of February, the 28th of February, Mercury, certainly Pacific time, goes into its shadow. We already have Venus in January gone into her shadow. Now it's Mercury's turn, right? And I'm just saying that because it's the day after the new moon, I would say that this Mercury retrograde plays into that new moon, or Mercury in shadow, rather. So what does that say to me? It says to me, whatever you're putting together as a new start, if it involves anything to do with contracts, writing, any kind of communications, look carefully at what you're putting down, what you're signing, etc. Why? Because we're going to have not only a Mercury retrograde in March, we're having a Venus retrograde in March as well. So this ties in potentially two things as well. Money, right? Now we're talking about Venus. Money, love, and of course values. So if anything around that new moon falls into these areas of money, love, and value of yourself, I would say that pay great attention to any kind of communications, because in March, you're going to be going over all that, whatever it is. Now, typically we say you've got to have something around the degree points, right? So this shadow period we're talking about is when Mercury actually goes direct, which would be an April time period, right? And that's going to be around 26 degrees of Pisces. So if you have something around 26 degrees of Pisces, pay attention to what it is, whatever planet or angle it is, because there's going to be some kind of big review or having to go back in March when both Mercury and Venus go retrograde. They start in Aries, retrograde back into Pisces, and then go forward again in April. So what does that all say? It says that whatever you do around that new moon on the 27th of February, or whatever is new, is going to be reviewed in March and probably not emerge into something concrete until April. Heads up on that. And the other thing too, let me just see here. Let me just finish off with the new moon in Pisces placements, and then I'm going to go into just a little bit of those two eclipses that are going to happen next month in March, because you need to know about them in this month of February. All right, so we have, again, at this new moon in Pisces, we have Jupiter squaring the moon and the sun. And like I said before many times, Jupiter really tends to bestow a lot of positive energy on you, even at squares. And I still think that that's true. But I think also in a global standpoint, you know, on the global stage, I think this Jupiter squaring the moon and the sun is going to put some kind of emphasis with regards to this is the beginning of many things expanding here. And the many things that we're expanding here on the global stage aren't necessarily going to be sitting with everybody very well. Now, Jupiter is at around 11 degrees of Gemini. And of course, the sun and the moon are 9-10 degrees of Pisces. So you really have to have something, if we're talking about an individual level, around those degrees to really have this effect with the Jupiter square, the new moon, right? And the sun. So the other configuration we have here is Mercury will be conjunct the north nodes, and in turn, the north nodes will conjunct Neptune. So this says a couple things. At the highest level, this is saying, you know, many of us are really going to be feeling inspired at this time with regards to our future destiny. Just plain and simple, right? The other part of it is that we get confusing information or messages about our future destiny path, or it seems unclear what our future destiny path is, sort of more on a global level, right? A mundane level. If you do have these degree points, so we're talking 24, 27, and 28 of Pisces, there might be some confusion around, you know, where you're going to be going in the future. But like I said, it can also be a time when you get great inspiration to move toward your destiny path. All right, that's it for the new moon in Pisces as we end the month of February. I just wanted to discuss a little bit about, especially the first, and I'll do this in more detail in my March video, but because March has 2 eclipses and both a Mercury and a Venus going retrograde, I really feel that you need to pay attention to what's happening in February, because you may have something happen in February that, technically speaking, is reflected in the transits and the eclipses that are happening in March. It's an extremely powerful setup for anything happening astrologically in March. And a lot of times, especially with eclipses, you can actually have something happening a month earlier that then just continues to play out in March. So pay attention if you've got anything. The first full moon is going to be on the 13th of March, the full moon total eclipse. And that is going to be at 23 degrees, almost 24 degrees of Virgo. So especially if you've got something around that degree point, or even if it's the opposite sign, Pisces, where the sun will be, that's also 23, 24 degrees, in this case, Pisces, right? You've got Saturn conjunct that sun, and you've got the north nodes conjunct the sun. The moon itself, so the eclipsed moon itself, will be conjunct the south nodes in Virgo. So this says to me, this eclipse is emphasizing you're going to be letting go. And we've got a big involvement of Uranus too. Yeah, I mean, Uranus is going to be playing into, by sextile, Saturn, the sun, and the north nodes all in Pisces. And so I think there's going to be sudden removals, I guess is what I'm saying. Now, you really have to have something around these degree points for anything significant to happen. But if you do, I'd like you to be paying attention to that in February and not wait till this eclipse happens in March. I feel this eclipse, if you've got anything around it, these degree points, there's going to be some quick removals. But because that's a trine we're talking about with Uranus, I would say it's going to favor you in the long term. But sometimes when we have things taken away unexpectedly, we don't take it as a positive. And then that new moon eclipse in Aries is going to be on the 29th of March. And so that's at exactly 9 degrees of Aries. So that's the degree point you need to be looking at. But Mercury will be retrograde, and so will Venus be retrograde at that new moon eclipse in Aries. And so I would say that when we're also going to have Uranus playing into this too, where Saturn will actually be sextiling Uranus. So this also kind of indicates a sudden unexpected removals. And with Saturn, this could also involve karma of some sort as well. Okay, I'm going to talk about all those eclipses and everything, and the Mercury and the Venus retrograde as well in my March video, but I really wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. All right, so also, let's just do a little peek. All right, let's do that little peek of what is happening in March. We've already talked about both Mercury and Venus will be going retrograde. They both start around 9-10 degrees of Aries and then go back into Pisces, 24-26 Pisces, and that's going to happen in April time period. I've already spoken about the eclipses. I'll mention them again in terms of the dates and the degrees. 23 degrees of Virgo is the total eclipse in Virgo. It's going to be on the 13th of March. New moon eclipse is exactly at 9 degrees of Aries on the 29th of March. All right, let's move on to take a look at your sun sign and or your ascendant. I suggest that you listen or watch both. All right. So Taurus, that full moon in Leo squares your sign and involves your 4th house. So this says to me there's going to be some kind of challenges around either your family, your mother, anything to do with a house, whether it's the house that you're living in, the house you want to sell, the house you want to buy, or even the house that you were brought up in. Yeah, so there's going to be some big spotlight put on this here. I mean, I think that with Leo, there may be some association here with, I'm thinking, because Leo rules the 5th house, and children could be involved, or a new love could be involved. I mean, this square could be something as simple as you're moving in with somebody, or they're moving in with you into your home, 4th house. And there's just some challenges around it where you've got to work out the details. Conversely, it could be that you're either moving in with your parents or your mother, or they're moving in with you. And there's a lot of different things that have to be done, literally probably moved around, to make this work. Always try to look at the win-win situation. You're being given the heads up. I'm doing this towards a little past mid-January, getting towards the last week of January here. So there's a heads up if you know anything that's going to be going on with your family that you might have to handle. Think ahead maybe and say, can I get advice from somebody? Is there someone else that can be involved to help me here? And this, of course, applies also to you buying or selling a home too, right? Now, when we look at the Mars retrograde in Cancer, well, that sextiles you, Taurus, and involves your 3rd house. Lovely. For those Taurians that are writers, this is your green light to move forward with, say, a writing project, or literally being offered that writing project, or some kind of thing that involves communications, and that covers a wide variety of things, right? Now, it is going to be in Cancer that this Mars retrograde goes direct. So certainly if you have a writing project that involves women, mothers, motherhood, and a little bit by extension children, but not directly children. It really is the activities around motherhood that we're talking about, and or our homeland, right? And our own home. If there's something around that, there's going to be opportunities coming in for you. I'm also thinking that because the 3rd house also rules siblings and neighbors, there may be some Taurians that have maybe some of their siblings, decide to reach out more. There's opportunities to connect with them. I mean, with the Mars going forward, it could be literally you could be moving towards them or them moving towards you. Also can bring in neighbors, opportunities here to do some activities with neighbors as well. But the main emphasis with the third house tends to be communications and writing. Now, when we look at that new moon that is in Pisces, that also sextiles you, Taurus, and involves your 11th house. I really like that. The 11th house can be your hopes, dreams, and wishes. It's also your friends and also the groups that you belong to. This new moon would be a great time to join new groups or to make decisions about new groups that you might want to join. Also, it can have new friends coming your way. And with the involvement of that new moon in Pisces, that says these people could be very compassionate, maybe very spiritual, maybe involved with the metaphysical world. But they could also act as a conduit for you to have some of your hopes, dreams, and wishes come true. Now, Taurus, you are going to be having or saying goodbye to Uranus in your sign this year as well. I'll talk about that more summertime period when it actually does change signs into Gemini. But that's going to be, you know, the done and dusted for you with regards to big changes, right? The big changes then go on to Gemini. So I think that's going to be very positive for you. That's really going to happen more like mid this year, 2025. Take care, Taurus. So that's the end of my take on the general astrology for February. Yeah, and hopefully you've got something that you relate to in here. I always love hearing from you. Please leave me comments. I also encourage you to reach out to me if you want any kind of reading. Everything's down below. I have everything's pretty well everybody in some way could connect with one of my services. I try to really keep my my costs down for you because I absolutely love doing this work. It energizes me every time I do it. All right, I want to thank you for listening to me. For new subscribers, welcome on board. All right, everybody, take care of yourself, sending you lots of love. And with this month, let's just say lots of inspiration. Bye for now.